I wouldn't blame her. She's hot. She's a porn star. You pay her money. You do your business. You get in, you get out. It's easy business.
To put it plainly, this is just the rejects room.
How many of you now will drink the water that comes out of your tap?
Nobody in their right mind.
A California fire department says Verizon slowed the data speed of its mobile command unit while crews were fighting the largest group of wildfires in the state's history. In a lawsuit against the FCC, Santa Clara County's fire chief claimed the slowdown had a significant impact on its ability to provide emergency services, and that Verizon only stopped throttling the connection when the department paid for a more expensive plan. Verizon apologized and said it was a mistake. 2 days after protesters toppled a Confederate monument at the University of North Carolina, the state's historical commission voted not to move 3 Confederate statues from the Capitol grounds. Instead, the commission decided to add what it calls context, signs that would give information about slavery and civil rights, and directed that a new monument to African Americans be built immediately. When the cast and crew of Crazy Rich Asians celebrated the film's premiere in Singapore, there was one notable absence: the original book's author, Kevin Kwan, who's wanted in his home country for draft dodging. Singapore's Ministry of Defense accuses Kwan of avoiding the 2-year military service that's required of all Singaporean men. He could face up to 3 years in jail or a fine of up to $10,000. Federal prosecutors charged Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter and his wife with spending more than $250,000 in campaign funds on themselves and then lying about what they were buying. According to the indictment, Margaret Hunter said makeup from Nordstrom was gift basket items for the Boys and Girls Clubs of San Diego. The Hunters said family dental costs were a charitable contribution for Smiles for Life, while clothes bought at a golf course were balls for the wounded warriors. And Duncan Hunter justified a game with his regular golfing buddy as, quote, a Christian thing.
Good afternoon.
Did President Trump commit a crime?
As the president said, we've stated many times, he did nothing wrong. There are no charges against him. And just because Michael Cohen made a plea deal doesn't mean that that implicates the president on anything.
So has he lied?
Look, again, I think that's a ridiculous accusation. The president in this matter has done nothing wrong.
Claiming over and over again that the president did nothing wrong might be enough to get the White House through the day. But it's not going to get them a whole lot farther, because they're about to face a lot more than just a bunch of cranky reporters in the briefing room. The Democratic minority is hell-bent on inflicting as much damage on Trump as possible, including removing him from office if they can. They'd also love to take back the House and Senate in the midterm elections, or at least get close, and those two efforts are inextricably linked. That is, Trump team corruption may now become central to the Democrats' message in the midterms. And how many seats they win writing that message will determine whether they can get the numbers they need for impeachment. As a reminder, the offense at the center of the storm is, for now, what Michael Cohen alleged in court yesterday, that Trump directed him to break campaign finance law by making hush money payments to 2 women for the purposes of influencing the election. I talked to Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, this afternoon. Do you think that equals an impeachable offense when it comes to the President of the United States?
Yes, if it's a felony, it is an impeachable offense for a president to commit a crime that involves the corruption of our democracy. And when I say impeachable, I don't mean a vote by the House of Representatives. I mean removal from office for abusing the Constitution and the powers of the presidency. I still favor an investigation first without jumping to conclusions, but no question there needs to be an investigation.
So what will Congress do with that information? Certainly there are Democrats who will start to use the I word right away, both because they loathe Trump and to use it as a rallying cry for midterm voters. But impeachment is rare and politically dangerous, and the bar is really high. Former Congressman Bob Barr was one of the Republican House members who led the campaign to impeach Bill Clinton in the late 90s.
If perjury, that is committing the offense of lying under oath, is not an abuse of office, then I don't know what is.
He said that we're not there yet on impeachment.
politically, I think it would be of greater benefit to the Democrats not to really press the issue of impeachment real hard without more evidence that Mr. Trump had committed an impeachable offense while in office, as opposed to things that happened beforehand. Not only doesn't it help them, it, I think, comes across as simply being way too political.
Trump is already starting to defend himself. In a Fox News interview set to air tomorrow morning, he says the hush money came from him.
They didn't come out of the campaign. They came from me, and I tweeted about it.
Republicans are likely to start parroting the president's defense or just buying time to review the allegations when they're finalized. But even Barr acknowledged that the terrain could start changing very quickly in favor of the pro-impeachment camp.
When one starts to look at so-called collusion or conspiracy with Russia, that does cast a different light on it. It certainly, I think, would provide a more legitimate basis for looking at impeachment.
Now, we don't know what Cohen and Paul Manafort will tell Mueller if they start cooperating. But Davis says his client has something to share. Does Michael Cohen have more information beyond paying off two women that would aid Robert Mueller?
So I have to be careful because this is up to Mr. Mueller to decide and determine. My observation, listening to what Mr. Cohen knows from his personal experience, is that Mr. Trump has acted in a way that, if proven, would result in his removal from office.
Is that only related to the information about the payments to the two women, or is there more?
Beyond.
And
It goes to the issue of knowledge about illegal behavior involving the hacking of computers and the corruption of our democracy. Now, I don't know whether or not my client, Mr. Cohen, will have that knowledge in a way that will persuade. I don't know what he will say, but I do have an observation that I think what he has to say will be of interest to Mr. Mueller.
How far back into his business with Trump and the Trump organization is he willing to go?
As far back as anyone wants him to tell the truth, but there are things that he was involved in that he doesn't think were so great, that he's not proud of.
That he's willing to talk about?
That he's willing to talk about.
And if they have the goods on some kind of collusion, things are going to heat up. And Bob Barr, one of the only guys with actual experience in this kind of thing, had some advice for Democrats.
It's important to define the issues very clearly and concisely and repeat it over and over again, not just to your constituents as a member of the House, but to the American public writ large. Let them know that these are the issues, this is the constitutional context, and to do your very best to remove politics from it.
Probably sound advice, but taking the politics out of it in 2018, that's going to be damn near impossible.
The allegations against the president may have shocked Washington. But last night here in West Virginia, Trump looked right at home. Trump managed to talk about everything but Michael Cohen, hush money, or his old campaign chair's financial crimes.
ICE is tracking down gang members, drug dealers, predators and killers. The Space Force. Fake news. Fake news.
Meanwhile, the network that Trump sees as real news was reliably giving the president cover.
But I'm still a little bit confused. So if somebody comes to you and says, give me money or I will humiliate you in public, that's a campaign donation?
The Mueller thing's a little bit complicated. The Cohen thing is interesting and it is explosive, no doubt. But what do we really care about right now?
This special counsel was put in place to look at Russia collusion.
Hang on, I'm looking for Russians. I'm looking,
That coverage may help explain what I heard from Trump supporters at last night's rally.
Nobody cares, but some elite few, but nobody else in this country cares about Stormy Daniels.
That would be conspiring to break federal law if he's telling the truth.
Well, I don't care.
I wouldn't blame her. She's hot, she's a porn star. You pay her money, you do your business, you get in, you get out. It's easy business.
I could care less who the president had relations with.
So you don't care if the president paid off a stripper to win the election?
I don't think paying off a stripper made him win the election.
I mean, if what he's saying is true, okay, that's a bad thing. And there's definitely some moral turpitude there that Trump's going to have to deal with. But then again, you don't know what to believe anymore because you hear so much distortion. You don't know what to believe.
I'm willing to stand behind this president no matter what anyway. And we have his back. We have his back.
President Trump campaigned on a promise to make America's infrastructure great again with a $1.5 trillion spending plan. Unlike much of his agenda, it had a lot of bipartisan support. But so far, Congress has allocated less than 2% of the funds that Trump wanted. Roads are still crumbling, bridges are still failing, and pipes continue to rust. And in rural America especially, it can feel like help is very far away.
I always get my water hot before I brush my teeth. My daughter, she don't even brush her teeth with tap water. She'll use bottled water to brush her teeth.
Brad Coleman works for an oil exploration firm and is the local preacher. He lives in Enterprise, Louisiana, where for the 250 or so residents, bad water is just a way of life.
Yeah, you can always tell whenever they add chlorine to it because we can be here in the living room and you can be taking a shower and you can actually smell it so strong in there.
Wow. Yeah, you can smell it. It's treated.
Coleman's family switched to bottled water 8 years ago when they worried that on top of the water's bad smell and dark color, it might also be affecting their health.
My wife, she has lupus, and we feel like, you know, when she takes a shower in it, sometimes it makes her flares worse.
Oh, no.
We don't know, but we think it could have something to do with the water.
Louisiana's water system is consistently ranked among the worst in the country. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave the state a D- last year. Recently, the governor declared 10 local systems to be the most distressed in the state, meaning out of compliance and lacking the funds to fix it. Enterprise is one of them. It's not the water here that's bad, it's the pipes. The water gets contaminated on the way to the house. The system is almost 50 years old, and the treatment facilities are in desperate need of repair.
I need 45 seconds after we start.
After we start.
Okay, go.
75-year-old Wilma Subra is a chemist and microbiologist who's been uncovering dangerous water systems since the 1980s. She, along with other water researchers, started testing the water in Enterprise last year while investigating other systems in the area.
So this was the first straw.
She found high concentrations of iron and manganese, which turn the water brown.
This treatment system does not have a filter. Therefore, all of that precipitated stuff is distributed to the community.
Leaky distribution pipes mean the system sometimes can't hold enough chlorine to prevent dangerous bacteria from growing. It was, in scientific terms, a big mess.
Oh, come on. Give me enough.
While the water in most homes met the minimum safety standards, Subra doesn't think people should be drinking it.
Other than the ones that have high levels of lead in their water, it's safe from a health perspective, but drinking water that has all of that precipitate in, that orange mud, that's not acceptable to have to drink that kind of water and pay for it.
In your mind, is it okay to consume it?
No, it should not be consumed. You wouldn't give it to a person on chemo. You wouldn't give it to a baby in their water or their sippy cup. You'd want them to have better protection.
Was there a way to forestall this problem?
There was a way if we would have done it as we moved through the years, but we needed to have been watching all along.
Down the road in St. Joseph, it took a public health emergency in 2016 for state officials to step in and do something about the water.
Nobody can afford to pay their bills and buy all this extra water, and it's truly affecting our children.
Residents had complained for years about their tap water's foul smell and weird colors. In a town of about 1,000 people, 90 homes tested above safe levels of lead. In one, there was as much as 100 times the acceptable limit. The crisis led to an emergency order by the governor that freed up $9 million in grants and tax money to replace the 90-year-old system. 4 months later, the community is still concerned.
How many of you now will drink the water that comes out of your tap?
I don't even cook with mine.
Several homes are still testing above normal lead levels, and water bills have increased by about 45%.
We have put in some pipes.
In a town where residents are already struggling, the cost is hard to swallow.
We still have the color of this kind of water.
In most places, you think water's free. You know, a lot of people think water's free. No, we have to pay for it, but I mean, it's like, it's a resource. So it should be okay, you know, but it's not for us.
How much is your water bill?
In the $70 range monthly.
Is it tough to meet that mark? Is it tough to pay that bill?
Yeah, yes it is, but we make do. We make sacrifices.
We had Flint, and then we had St. Joseph. Everybody's saying, what about my system? How does it rank? What's wrong with my system? And what do we need to do to fix my system?
Help on a national level is unlikely to come anytime soon. Experts say it'll cost $475 billion to fix America's pipes. And those experts say that even if Congress finds the funds, it's unlikely to trickle down to water infrastructure. Is it Enterprise's job to fix Enterprise's water?
Oh, that's a tough question. Whenever we try to reach out for help, a lot of times they're like, without saying these words, help yourself.
Have you ever considered moving because of the water situation?
Yes. And I've considered it, and I'm still considering it.
A large-scale smuggling bust. The feds seized 300,000 pairs of fake sneakers that were headed into the tri-state. The group allegedly
This month, a group of Chinese smugglers were arrested trying to bring 300,000 counterfeit Nike sneakers, worth about $73 million, into New Jersey.
The sneakers would then be taken to locations in Brooklyn and Queens, where they would sell for about $190 a pair.
The 42 containers of sneakers came from China. It hasn't been determined what city they came from, but in China, everyone knows that Putian is the city of fakes.
What's up, Reddit? So it's Chan, and today we are at C4 Factory.
One counterfeit seller was willing to give us a rare look at his operation.
A one and only pair of C4 frozen yellow with gum soles, freshly made at the factory today. All right, come on in. So,
what are we looking at here?
Well, this is pretty much our base of operation. You can call it an office. You know, it's basically just an apartment unit. You need a large space to put your shoes and organize them and sort them out before you ship them away.
So what do we got here? I see we got some Balenciagas here.
Yeah, these are Balenciaga replicas. So lately, you know,
Chan wasn't always in the fake sneaker business. He used to be a med school student in the UK. While looking for a pair of rare shoes, he found fake pairs online and realized they were all coming from the same place. Eventually, he decided to get in on the business himself. Because this is all part of a black market, he wanted to wear a mask during the interview.
They call these the dad shoes. So, you know.
Dad shoes.
Yeah, dad shoes. You know, it looks like something your father would wear
Definitely.
Years ago.
What do these run USD if they're real?
I believe they cost somewhere around 800.
And what do you sell these for?
We sell them normally at about $120 US.
Shoes like Balenciagas, Yeezys, and Jordans aren't just expensive. They're also usually extremely limited. If you're desperate, you could buy from a reseller, but that's even more expensive. So for some people who just gotta have the latest pair, the best option is to buy fakes.
Reddit is a good source of information for us to keep ourselves updated on what the customers want.
So in 2016, while Chan was still in med school, he started his own business selling fakes, or what he calls high-quality replicas. Pretty soon, he was moving up to 120 pairs of shoes a day, which on average brought in over $100,000 a month. He hired a few employees to do the dirty work, but eventually, he moved to Putian himself to be closer to the action. How common is this kind of work in Putian?
This is a very major industry. It forms pretty much the backbone of the local city economy.
As soon as the sun sets, the bikes come out. Each pair is picked up by a courier at the factory, and then taken to a middleman, who packs it up and gets it ready for shipping, right there in the middle of the street. At any given moment, there are thousands of fake shoes flooding intersections and back alleys. This isn't a coincidence. Nike and Adidas have both had official factories in Putian since the 1980s, which means that it's pretty easy to find the same materials and the same employees that you'd find in a legit factory. Some stores operate in plain sight, logos and all. And police look the other way, usually.
Nah, these just came out very recently.
Really?
Yeah, they dropped about a few weeks ago. What we have here is a replica of the Off-White Converse.
How do you have a replica of these made if these just came out?
If you want to truly make something that is very close to the original, you need a pair of the original shoes in order to cut it up and fully deconstruct. So people manage to procure a sample of the original shoe before they're even sold. So these are commonly called backdoors.
And you've already got replicas ready to go?
Yeah, we have at least 3 versions of this Converse being made. So this is one of the better ones, I feel.
The Converses Chan is holding are part of a limited edition Off-White collaboration made by superstar fashion designer Virgil Abloh. They're one of the most sought-after sneakers today, and on the resale market, they go for up to $1,500 a pair.
From the customer's standpoint, I'm sure they're very happy to get a much cheaper version of the shoes that they like. From your standpoint, you're making money. They're winning, you're winning. Is anybody losing here?
Obviously, the first thing that comes to mind would be the brand owners.
Sure.
But I feel it actually helps to increase the brand awareness of a brand owner. So it's actually a win-win-win situation for everyone involved.
Really? Let's say you're sitting across from Virgil Abloh.
Yeah.
You think he'd say the same thing?
Virgil Abloh did actually mention something about replica once before.
I love counterfeits. It's the best feedback. It's better than like a great review on Vogue. Like if it's working to the point where someone else can profit off that, that means it's really working.
But that was Virgil Abloh last year. And since then, he seems to have changed his mind. This year, his company launched a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against companies who were selling counterfeit merchandise.
These are replicas of the human races. So
what's the matter with these?
A customer probably complained that, hey, for $60, I expect that the edges of the embroidery must be clean and sharp. And, I'm not happy with this. I don't want this.
But the biggest threat to Chan's business isn't lawsuits, angry designers, or even the threat of government raids. It's his own customers. They expect perfection in their fake shoes. And if they don't get it, they're just as vocal about their disappointment as they would be for a normal business. A single negative review can cost Chan tens of thousands of dollars in lost sales and tank his business for months.
This room is mostly stockpiles that resulted from customers complaining that, hey, I don't like certain features of these. These are not what I expected. They're not as good as I expected. And
so this wall is just full of rejects.
Yeah, this is to put it plainly, this is just the rejects room.
Wow. Does it ever frustrate you when you get, some negative message from some kid in high school who's freaking out because the stitching is ever so slightly crooked on their shoes?
Yeah, it does. When you're wearing a pair of shoes, no one in their right mind goes up close to your feet and say, hey, that looks 0.5 inches off. I think it's fake. A normal person doesn't do that. All these things don't actually matter in real life.
Are you a sneakerhead yourself?
Personally, I wouldn't call myself a sneakerhead.
Really?
Yeah, footwear is something that is supposed to be functional. As much as I think that the shoes look ridiculous at times, it is my core business, so I'm in no place to judge anyone.